It's finally happening. The trial everyone in the country has been waiting for. United States versus Diddy. You know, the funny thing is it actually has that vibe of a heavyweight title fight. Although Diddy has his legal dream team, which coincidentally I'm not a part of because I was not available. Well, that and they didn't ask me. But anyway, although he has his legal dream team and enough money for all the experts that money can buy, he still is going to have an uphill battle in this case. I mean, it really will be trial by fire. Now, if I was on Diddy's legal defense team, how would I defend him? What strategy would I use? Well, get comfortable, join me on a legal deep dive, defending Diddy, trial by fire, and watch me lay out my defense for Diddy's trial strategy. About how I would cross-examine and attack the prosecution's witnesses. But of course, I would look to call some of my own defense witnesses on his behalf. And I referred to this early on when I discussed attacking the credibility of witnesses. I would try to find, identify, and call witnesses that had relationships, personal friendships with some of the accusers, and see if I could, get them to testify that this person that accused him of forcing sex, who claimed to be a victim, made statements to them indicating they were being affiliated with Diddy for some personal benefit, hopes of benefiting their career, hopes of him investing money in a project that they wanted to develop, hopes that he would somehow introduce them to people that they would benefit from personally and professionally, okay? If I can find witnesses to say that this person that's claiming to be a victim made these statements to them, then again, I believe the jury is gonna have a very difficult time believing their statement about being a victim. And again, like you hear me say frequently is, at this point, you've never heard me say that I would directly stand up and accuse somebody of lying, okay? That's a way to really, offend a jury, lose a jury, and you really can't. It's very difficult to just get up there and, prove somebody's lying because, you don't believe their story hurts. But again, these witnesses saying that this person made these statements is something that would cause major doubts and cast major doubt on their credibility. And I would also call additional employees. Same thing. I want these employees to talk about what a charitable employer that Diddy was, helped them out financially, helped their family out, treated them well, was polite with them, was friendly with them, didn't treat them like dirt. I would get these witnesses to corroborate that, yes, he does attract con artists and hangers-on and people that try to latch onto him for their own benefit, or opportunists that try to look for ways to take advantage of him. I would have these employees talk about the numerous frivolous lawsuits he's been hit with all the time, people making false allegations, extort money out of him, and again, this is the reality of what a celebrity deals with. So I'm laying the foundation that this kind of stuff does happen, okay? And the more people like that I can present, the more, the more powerful, the more impact that it has with the jury. So when you think about what I said in the beginning about the buy-in, that I want the jury to wrap their minds around the concept that if you're famous, there are going to be people that out there that try to take advantage of you, that try to shake you down. That's what I said in the beginning. That was my defense theory, my buy-in. And what I've tried to do throughout this trial, well, I haven't tried to do with this. I'm not trying the case, but my strategy throughout the trial would be to elicit information and testimony from these witnesses that are consistent with that theory. Because I've been saying that all along, that hey, this is what it's like to be a celebrity, hangers-on, parasites, leechers, opportunists, fake lawsuits, big fake entourage trying to take advantage of you. And I've been able to establish through witness testimony that this is a very daily reality for someone like Diddy, any celebrity. And that doesn't take into account the employees that are working for him that are undermining him, They're trying to find ways to make money off of him. They're trying to undermine him and use his name or supposed authority for their own personal benefit. That kind of stuff goes on all the time without him knowing about it. And I can guarantee you that I can find employees that say that happens all the time. They find out somebody's been trying to use his name to get a book deal. They find out somebody's trying to, on the side, sell photos or sell what they believe is private information to get a book deal or to make money selling stories to a newspaper. We see that all the time, right? We see some nanny that worked for some celebrity giving a salacious story to a news article for, and they got paid $20 or $30 or $50,000 for it. You see that all the time. You see somebody writing, trying to get a book deal based on their relationship or history or a prolonged interaction with a celebrity. That's their claim to fame. That happens all the time. That is the reality of it. And again, having these employees say, yeah, this is what life is like when you're a celebrity. This is a daily, weekly occurrence, and these things are going on without his knowledge on a regular basis. Frivolous lawsuits, attempts to blackmail him, attempts to extort him. You kind of got to know that happens all the time. I would also get these employees, and again, I want to be clear, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I would also get these employees to admit that Diddy is so rich and so famous and so popular that he doesn't need to pay sex workers to have sex. That he could just say, hey, I'm having a party tonight, and the people would just come. So again, what I want the jury to think about is, hey, he doesn't need to do that. Why would he pay money? Why would he pay people money to have sex? He's a celebrity. He's rich. He could go out there any day of the week in a big city like Los Angeles or New York or Miami. Diddy could go old school and put out flyers at the party at my house, okay? And women would come, men would come. He would attract people to have sex parties with him all the time without paying for it, okay? Again, I'm not judging anybody. I'm not endorsing any conduct, but I'm saying that's a certain reality of his life that I'm certain I can get his employees to talk about. I would also try to get his employees to talk about things he's done in the community, charities, things he's done to give back, not just to them, but to churches, to kids. Again, I want the jury to see him in a favorable light, not just in the light the prosecution's trying to show him in. Because what you want the jurors to think about in the back of their mind is, man, this guy, he's got it all. He's got money, he's got fame, he's got entourages, he can more or less get whatever he wants. Why would he risk everything, his career, his life, his freedom, just to get that one girl or those two girls to have sex with him? He didn't have to do that. He could get women, men to have sex with him for nothing. So why would he risk everything? Why would he commit these crimes and be abusive and force these handful of women to do things that, according to all the testimony, he gets people to do for him all the time for nothing? So that's something you want to kind of put in the back of their minds too. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is one of the questions or decisions that an attorney and a defendant must make in every criminal trial is whether or not Diddy should testify in his own defense. And I can tell you that I've got an opinion on that. If you talk to 10 different lawyers, you'll get 10 different opinions on that. You're going to always have some lawyer that says, no, the defendant needs to testify. And quite frankly, I think most people, when they're accused of a crime, they believe that they need to testify. They all say, I need to get up there and tell the jury I didn't do this. If I don't testify, they're going to think I'm guilty. Well, it has been my experience that is not the case. I've tried, countless, violent crime, murder, armed robbery, sexual assault crimes, drug offenses over the years. And I can tell you based on my personal experience, I have a number of a substantial number of not guilty verdicts in trials where my client did not testify. And I'll tell you my position on that, and then we'll talk about it in Diddy's case. My position is, in a criminal case, unless it is absolutely necessary for some element of your defense, Unless your client has some information that only he can testify to or only he can talk about, unless it is absolutely necessary, then the defendant should not testify. Okay? And I will tell you why I think that. First of all, when you look at what the defendant can say, if he doesn't really offer anything on his defense besides, I didn't do it, that person's lying, that's not what happened. Well, that doesn't really score any points. That's kind of why you're going to trial anyway. You're just saying you're not guilty and you didn't do it. So you getting up there saying you didn't do it is not going to be very persuasive to the jury because you're still subject to being cross-examined, and you have something to gain by saying you didn't do it, okay? So you don't really benefit from that. Also, something you have to deal with is jurors will make judgments about you once you get on the witness stand. And these judgments don't have anything to do with whether or not you're telling the truth, but what kind of vibe they get off of you. They'll start thinking about whether or not you seem like the type of person that would commit this crime. They'll think whether or not you're arrogant or you are full of yourself or you're not really a nice person. And they will take those judgments about you and hold them against you irrespective if you're telling the truth. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm accused of a crime and I'm, which I'm not guilty of, and I'm on the witness stand testifying, okay? And you look at how I'm dressed, okay? I'm wearing French cuff shirts with cufflinks and a tie pin and a nice suit and a Rolex watch. I can easily see jurors saying, look at him. He thinks he's all of that. He have on his expensive clothes and his nice jewelry and all this kind of stuff. He probably thinks he can get away with anything. He probably thinks he's better than people. And they will make those judgments about you before you even open your mouth. And then what they'll do is they will hold that against you, and not even based on your testimony, just based on the vibe they get from you, okay? You may recall, a long time ago, Mike Tyson had a sexual assault trial where, the facts were just, from a sexual assault trial standpoint, the prosecution case was not very good at all, okay? But Mike got on the witness stand. And Mike got on the witness stand and every other word began with an F. He's very profane. He's not articulate. He's very rough, around the edges and, not very polite. And he came up like a monster. He came up like the kind of person you could see being a violent sex offender, just based on his demeanor and the way he spoke. And in my opinion, that's why he got convicted. I think had he just sat there and kept his mouth shut, he would have probably got found not guilty. But that's what you get when you have tax lawyers to represent you in your criminal trial. So nonetheless, so when it comes to whether or not Diddy should testify, I'm not clear on that. I don't know that he needs to testify because what I would try to do is everything he could say in his defense, I would try to get out through the witnesses. That's what I'd want to do. And, if you don't think that, it can be a problem, you think about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial. Amber Heard was horrible. She was claimed to be the victim in that case, but the jury hated her. They thought she was dishonest. She would not concede very basic things that she should concede. She tried to portray herself in a light that was not accurate. When you look at Johnny Depp, on the other hand, when he testified, he owned everything. He talked about his drug problems. He talked about his drug use. He talked about how he spent too much money. He laid it all out there. Anything you could say bad about him, he conceded. And he became, he's perceived as more authentic. And when you look at the outcome of that trial, she sued him and claimed to be the victim. And the jury handed her behind. Not only did she not get a dime, but he was awarded, something like $15 million in damages against her. And her career is over. So it's very important to be careful about whether or not you get on the witness stand. And I think when you have celebrities or clients that are very successful, they can be difficult to manage because some of the things that make them so successful can make them difficult clients. I mean, they think they're smarter than everybody. I mean, that's just how they are. They think they're smarter than you. They think that there's something that they understand better than you. And that's just, how they are. They don't want to take your advice. They think they can get up there. I mean, Alex Murdaugh, he got up on the witness stand and was a friggin' pathological liar. But in his mind, he could persuade everybody to believe that he was telling the truth, that he was so remorseful not remorseful, he said he didn't do it, but that he didn't do anything. But he lied constantly, but he was so arrogant because he got away with it for so long that he believed that he could persuade everybody that he was telling the truth, and they were just gonna believe him because he's Alex Murdaugh. And that's how successful people can be. And that's why sometimes it's better to keep them off the witness stand. So my assessment is no, Diddy should not testify. What's gonna be the final outcome of the trial? Well, I gotta call it like I see it. The funny thing is that I spoke at a seminar and I discussed this case with a cross-section of people. And what I found, surprisingly, was just as there are a number of people that, were just adamantly, certain that he would be convicted and he was guilty of these crimes, there were an equal number of people that felt that he was being singled out because he was black and a successful black entertainer, and that people in Hollywood have these kind of parties all the time, and why is all of a sudden the one successful black media mogul is the one being targeted, and things like that, and it's racially motivated. So you got to take those kind of things into account. You think about the O.J. Simpson trial, which I'm very familiar with. I followed a lot about. I read a lot of the books on it. I followed the trial. The majority of the country, well, particularly the majority of white Americans rather, were certain that he was going to be convicted. They thought, based on the evidence, it was an open and shut case. However, there are aspects of that case, aspects of the defense that resonated with other Americans who had different experiences with law enforcement and being set up for crimes and having law enforcement lie and falsify evidence. And, having that cross-section of individuals on the jury led to him being found not guilty, and people were just shocked. Well, whether a certain segment of the country was shocked. So, I'm not going to say it's not an uphill battle. It certainly is. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, I've tried cases that I thought were an uphill battle, that I thought I was going to lose. And I just went in saying, hey, I'm going to do the best I can with it. And, just kind of see what happens and get acquittals, have my clients found not guilty in very, very difficult cases. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be an uphill battle. But the only thing for sure in a criminal case is nothing's for sure. Do you think Diddy is a victim of con artists, opportunists, and people that want to bring him down for financial reasons or based on his status in the community? Or do you think Diddy is a truly violent sex offender that needs to be in prison for a long time? Do me a favor, post your comments and call it like you see it. That's it. What's good, people? Suits, Law and Order, LA Law, Matlock, Perry Mason. I think it'd be fun to do a podcast talking about our favorite all-time lawyer TV shows. What we like, what we don't like, what's realistic, what's not realistic, and really just go down the rabbit hole. I'll even share which lawyer TV show made the difference in me wanting to be a lawyer. Do me a favor, post your comments and tell me your favorite lawyer TV shows so we can talk about them too. That's it.